when you go and look at a bar that's in service, especially at peak volume, just how many objects are out of place? If there's a bunch of bottles sitting on a drain board or on a counter, or there's just stuff everywhere, what that means is the bartender is adapting because the design can't do it.
Hello and welcome to the Bar Business Podcast, where we help bar owners increase profits, attract loyal guests, and simplify operations so you can avoid burnout and finally enjoy your life outside of your bar. I'm your host, Chris Schneider, the Bar Business Coach. Today on the Bar Business Podcast, we are joined by an absolutely phenomenal guest, Tobin Ellis. And Tobin is a guy that has been around the industry for over 30 years. He is a bartender, he has managed, he has done a lot of things, but now he works largely in the realm of bar design. He is the founder of Studio Bar Magic, which is a global hospitality consulting and design firm. He focuses on operational design, which is something, I'm sure he'll get into this in quite a bit of depth here in a second, that a lot of architects and people that design bars don't focus on it. If you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me talk about, your bartenders should never move. They should be stuck in one spot and pretty much be able to work there. Well, I didn't even realize when I was saying this, but this idea probably came in my head because of something Tobin said years ago that got repeated to me, because he is the pioneer of zero-step bartending. He's also worked on equipment design, and recently he came out with the book Bar Design Essentials, I think just last month or a little bit over a month ago. And it is a book all about how to design a bar. So Tobin, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully I did not botch your background too bad, but go ahead and fill everybody in a little bit on who you are and where you're coming from.
Sure. That was perfect. Just super fast. So I don't know that it's the most interesting part of the discussion, but I started bartending in 1989. I started actually with fast food, dishwasher, barback bartender, and then did every front of house position, a little bit of expo. I wanted to hop behind the line, but I started traveling the country, putting up bars and restaurants in the 90s for TGI Fridays, back when they were sort of the gold standard on the casual and high volume side, and then clubs, hotels, etc. And about 8 years in, I kept getting asked by other owners to do little things to help their businesses. So I started a consultancy. I had no frame of reference, didn't know any bar consultants in the world. Met a couple over the years, and then it kind of blew up. But when I was doing it, we were just trying to train bartenders, do drink programs, figure out how to do things that we now call playbook, and look at service modeling and labor cards, and just how do you make the business more profitable so that there's more opportunity for bartenders. It was always about the bartender. It's still about the bartender, but it's at a whole different level, and it's looking at asset performance and optimization and leakage and all those fun math things, financial stuff. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I always talk with my guests before I have them on, and we had quite a long conversation. And one of the things that just blew my mind as we were talking is you start breaking down not only the design side of it, but how the design side impacts the bartender and how that impact on the bartender impacts the bottom line. Where really design decisions are not just about looking cool, but about protecting your finances at the same time.
100%. My whole job is steps and seconds, and that's how I quantify everything. We do time motion studies and waste walks, and we look at bartender biomechanics and how they're threaded into SOP, playbook, workflow. And even if you're running a dive bar and all that stuff's like, hey, we don't deal with that. How much time are your bartenders spending doing non-revenue producing, non-experiential with the guest producing actions versus things you want them to be doing? And you can just break it all down and exaggerate it. And that's when it starts to click for people. This and that. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a 300-foot bar, and we're going to put one guest on one side and another guest on the other side and put a bartender back there. How much money do you think you and the bartender are making tonight? They're going to spend instead of their time walking. They're going to quit. And that's exaggerated, but the exaggeration does not make it something that's not important. It's super important to look at how much wasted motion, effort, time, energy, fatigue are you forcing your staff to have because you had someone cobble together equipment behind a bar and where it's located and how big of a space the bar was and the shape and the height and the thickness of the subtop and all that you didn't think were that important, or you assumed that a GC or architect or interior designer was a master of, that they should know these things and how they apply to your business. And you learn pretty quickly, they are very good at designing and building things. They don't know anything about operations, not at that level. They don't understand how to make anything behind a bar. And it's really important. It's a factory. So I basically build assembly lines. They just happen to be out of house theatrical assembly lines where you have to do everything at once all the time to a giant crowd of animals who are half in the bag or on God knows what. And you have to do it during peak volume because that's when you make all your money.
Absolutely. And one of the things it stood out to me as I was looking through your book is this idea that a bar should be designed, and it goes to what you were just saying, from the inside out. That it's not about necessarily what it looks like, it's about functionality first and then making that functionality beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, this isn't a new concept. I didn't come up with it. Inside out design, and this goes back hundreds of years, probably most famously to Dieter Rams, who's an industrial designer, a very famous designer. I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright, actually, he kind of had a theory about balancing form and function, but it was his mentor that he learned from who invented this concept of the skyscraper, Louis Sullivan, who said the famous quote, always has it been form follows function. And it's interesting because you don't have to get all historical about architecture or anything. Just look outside your window at Mother Nature. There's nothing Mother Nature does that's like, I think I'm going to make this be pretty and then hope that it can fly. It's like, no, it's all about survival of the species through evolution, and that's design, right? It's just biological design. Mm-hmm. And you look at these things and you go, wow, that flower is beautiful, or that tree, or that body of water. Well, it's because it is survived, and it is survived because it has evolved its construction and design to do its job or to survive the constraints and elements around it. And so it's an age-old concept, as old as this planet. And the idea to me is, it's like if you work a little bit, you can make something functional that's brute ugly. If you work a lot, you can kind of carve out and curve and erase some of that ugliness. But if you really take something to its functional maximum, to the best of your ability, if you're an informed subject matter expert, the crazy thing is that the beauty always emerges. Like the most beautiful designs are the ones that are the most functional because you kind of have a secret weapon that people don't talk about. When you design a bar, you're designing around a human being. Mm-hmm. We're already an almost perfect machine. So you're just designing a machine that supports the machine, and our machine moves in a perfect circle in every direction. So you're inherently kind of set up with, some beauty to work with. So you can do beautiful and functional spaces. It's just, we live in an industry in a country that has long prioritized aesthetics and optics over substance and functionality. And that's only getting worse with the digital age we're in. So, like if I'm not tan enough, if I'm not lit on the screen enough, I'm probably not smart, right? But if someone's got a perfect studio look, I better listen to them. Like that's what you compete with now. And it's the same thing with high construction. People want beauty. I get it. That's cool. And I just try to help them in the book and in general kind of break apart, well, what's beautiful? Because to me, beauty isn't what a room looks like when it's empty. It's how it feels when it's full. That's what hospitality is all about. What's the vibe? And that's the way you can quantify a vibe. Because if you spend a ton of money on those Italian marble floors in a bar or a restaurant, don't you want those covered with people all the time? Like you're not even, so, you better hope those floors are full, because if they're not, you're going to have to be selling off that Italian marble to the next bar owner who's going to want to buy it at pennies on the dollar, right?
Well, that is so true. One of the things that occurs to me, because there are a lot of things that I look at, and I'm sure there's a thousand more things that you look at when you walk into a bar and you go, hey, whoever designed this didn't quite have the right idea going on here. So just real quick, because I feel like for the folks listening, if we can give them a little bit of concrete, they might grasp some of this a bit better. So what are a couple concrete things that you see all the time that just make you go, who the hell came up with this idea?
I'm going to give you my 60-second walk into a bar and evaluate the bar design. First misnomer you have to know is people think that it's about how busy the bar is. Sure, if there's nobody in the bar, there's two people, it's really hard for the flaws to show themselves. But it's not about how busy the bar is, because you can have a super busy bar and still have a underperforming engine. You can also have a nice, steady, slow one doing the same thing. So I look for three things, and I can do it the first one through the glass. I don't even have to walk in. I can look through the windows, and so can you. And you just look and watch the walking of the bartenders. How much are they walking? If they're walking even close to 50% of the time they're back there, you have a major design flaw, major. And you also, what we do, so we get technical and we go to properties and we do this for the asset managers, like a hospitality REIT, and we're trying to find leakage and recapture uncaptured revenue. And so we do time motion studies where we actually calculate, we tap on a device like constantly, like, drink building, idle time, guest interaction, POS, draft, whatever they want to know. And then we do that over a huge amount of time and we give them the study and say, look, this is what's happening. You don't have to do all that. You just have to pay attention to what is the value and the non-value added time, right? So if a bartender is walking while they're back there and it's not to service or talk to a guest, that's non-value added. They're going to get a beer, right? But they have to because somebody put the beer way over there. They shouldn't have to walk 8 steps each direction 100 times a night to pull a beer. And what else can't they do when they're over there? So you can just look and see how much wasted steps are walking. And you can go in and count steps, but I just I can see right away, like this bar, wow, this is super efficient. Like they're only moving when they want to or when they're servicing the guest. The second thing I do is I look for, so it's about steps, strain, and mess. So you look for all the walking, then you look for strain. How much are the bartenders reaching forward, low, or high? Are they straining their bodies to reach things? And the biggest culprit is straining forward. And it's crazy how many bartenders I talk to, and they're like, I never thought about that. Like, watch yourself at work tonight. How often, like put a broom, tape a broom to your back, keep the broom level. You can't do it on most bars. You're constantly reaching and leaning. Well, that's taking you out of neutral spine, super bad for your body as you get older and in general. It's also slower. It's fatigue and it's more time. It's more time to the object. So how much are they straining? And then third, mess. And messy me's. And this is the easiest one, but people don't think of it. When you go and look at a bar that's in service, especially at peak volume, just how many objects are out of place? If there's a bunch of bottles sitting on a drain board or on a counter, or there's just stuff everywhere, what that means is the bartender is adapting because the design can't do it. And they shouldn't have had to do that. If you designed a bar well, you shouldn't see stray objects everywhere. You shouldn't see a mess. You should be able to stay in mise, with full mise en place. And you don't have to use a fancy word. Everything should be where it belongs all the time because as any bartender worth a lick of salt knows, there's no thinking in bartending. No crying in baseball, no thinking in bartending. Not when it comes to making drinks. It's all consolidated into muscle memory. So 3 things you can do at any bar and instantly observe and realize if you've got a problem. And if you're just bleeding cash, invisible blood, that adds up.
And when we're talking bleeding cash, I know a lot of this is obviously volume based, but it's amazing to me, and this goes back to the conversation we had before, but how like a handful of seconds can lead to serious cash loss and how that all revolves around peak volume. And how we don't think enough about peak volume with regard to all of this ergonomics and the steps and things that you're talking.
It's where it all matters. And you as a coach, you know this, and so do most others that are in that space is, you optimize for peak volume because that's your greatest opportunity. And you make the biggest gains or the biggest losses and leakages during those whatever window of hours. Typically, it's going to be 3 to 6 hours, right? Hope maybe you're lucky and it's more. I just did an audit at a Miami Beach rooftop, very, very busy bar. So I'm sure your audience is pretty smart and they're savvy in the industry. They're doing $22 million a year on a rooftop. So it's a multi-day part bar and restaurant. That's 11 million beverage. So they're doing a 50% beverage to food P-mix, which is massive, right? Mm-hmm. This place cranks morning, noon, and night till wee hours in the morning. They've got 4 stations. So I do plan reviews and I do these for anyone and they're not crazy expensive. A lot of the design services I do are for scale luxury hotels and stadiums. They're not for mom and pop anymore. But one thing I still do for anyone that wants to pay for it is I do these plan reviews and I do these audits. And so I can look at this point, 22 years of doing this, I can look at a design and I design every day too. So I'm also not just staring at stuff. I know how it works. And I audit the plan with some IP that we use at Studio Bar Magic, and I can calculate the number of wasted steps, and we can break that down for clients that want to pay for it down to LBW, not just for liquor, drinks, everything. And then we annualize that off of the time that was wasted and what that time would translate to unsold, uncaptured drinks and what that revenue is. And we do all the math. We show all the math. There's no smoke and mirrors. Human takes about 0.7 seconds, average human to take a step. So we calculate that time from the wasted steps. So I did it up at this place and we calculated, it's just about 7 seconds on average per drink wasted. 7 seconds. Come on. What does that add up to? $1.1 million a year. And this is a hotel that's owned by a REIT. And so they're looking for valuation. The formula, those of you who know that is in the luxury hotel section, it's a 10 to 12 multiple. So that means that 1.1 million uncaptured, that's 11 to $13 million or 12 and change million dollars of valuation that they're missing out on that they can capture. So scale is huge, but even a little 6-seat bar, part of a restaurant, you're not just losing the uncaptured sale. You have to, of course, realize that if you're not producing a drink, bringing a drink, or engaging with a guest, you're losing a guest, right? It's not that every guest wants to be your buddy and talk to you anymore, but think to yourself, how many times have you been at a bar and you just wanted to say one thing or ask a question or get the bartender's attention and you could? Well, what if your dwell times increase? Your likelihood to be a brand champion, tell people about the place, come back, goes through the roof. If your bartenders are not engaging with your guests because they're walking because of the inefficiencies of the design, you're not just losing revenue directly from that drink. You're creating a reason for them to walk out the door and never come back. And you probably never hear about it. These are the quiet quitters. They're just not coming back. They might not even know why. They might not even realize, because it took 8 minutes to get a drink or because I don't even know the bartender's name. And your bartenders almost get conditioned at these kinds of bars to become transactional. They know they have to be. And the only place you should have a transactional bartender, in my opinion, are like stadiums when there's lines and nightclubs. Those kinds of crazy concentrated volume, sure, it can be all transactional. But everywhere else, if I'm not making a drink or bringing a drink, as a bartender, I want to be building my clientele, engaging with, having fun, making the party. That's the job. And you can't make the party if you're out doing laps and putting in 9 miles of laps behind the bar.
Well, that is absolutely true. And speaking of laps, when I was looking through your book, there was one thing that really caught me because it just spoke to me in a way that nothing else did, which is that you really are not a fan of circle bars. And I remember working at a bar where somebody had redesigned it, and it was a U-shaped bar that had like wings on either side and then came in the middle and came out. And it looked cool, but it was the worst thing in the world to work in because I was literally walking in laps around this center of this bar all day long. So just real quick for everybody, why are circle bars just a bad life choice in general, even though they look gorgeous? And what are good life choices on bar shapes?
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm complicated. I'm a complicated human because I love and I loathe circle bars. I think that's what I wrote. I love to sit out. I love the way they look. Everybody does. And if, and only if, I work, and when I did, I was lucky to a few times. If I work with a great squad, we've got each other's flanks, we know each other's movements, then the circle bar can be great to work when it's zone bartending. But when you're back there by yourself or at low deployment, which is often, or someone calls out, or you're working with bartenders who, they're more interested in being actors or something else, and they're not really back there to money in the book. They're a nightmare because so little is in your field of vision. You don't have a choice. You have to constantly do laps and move around. And then from a design point of view, then it's kind of obvious if you spend the minute to think about it. But from a design point of view, the smaller the circle gets, the less equipment you can fit. So I'm going to have a 12, 16 seat circle bar. But as you start, so there's the stools. Here's the stools. Here's the counter. Here's the equipment. Here's the clearance space behind the bar. And then there's the back bar. No refrigeration. So now I have nothing behind me except maybe a little bottle riser. And so now it has to all live on that outer perimeter. So now I have to walk to do everything. Or even if you can fit equipment back there, you to waste so much space because you're putting rectangles and squares unless you're doing custom. And that's what we do a lot. We do tons of custom fab. But if you're buying catalog equipment, you're buying bricks. You're buying squares and rectangles, and you're trying to fit them into circles. Like this one always resonates with like people who do a lot of camping. Like, what shape are all camping food containers? You won't find a high-end camping company that makes round containers because they waste space, the corners. It's just air in the refrigerator or in the cooler. So everything is a square or rectangle. It's the same behind a bar. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how do we do this? And then we've got the complexity of the curves. Everything's got to be a weld, everything's got to be a bend, everything millwork. Everything is like 2, 3, 5, 10x more expensive. And then you're taking the prime usage of your total space. So one of the things in the book that you're talking about is it talks about geometry, bar geometry. Is the bar the shape that it is? Why is it where it is? And why is it the size it is? And usually people don't have an answer to all three. Right? Like sometimes the space, like a long, narrow pad, it dictates the shape and the location. Like it's got to be up against the wall. It's going to be a long shotgun bar. But I always just say, before you fall in love with the shape, look at it from a business point of view. What are the advantages and disadvantages of that shape? So circle bars are some of the toughest. It's the really wonky, weird, and then these come along with like the one you described, right? Like, oh, it's like a Batman symbol. And I'm like, oh, great. Like, and they have all these like acute and corners that are dead ends. You can't put anything behind and they're hard to reach the tip of the counter. Circle bars can be tough. Shotgun bars are the least expensive to build and the easiest to design, and they are the easiest to work. Because if shotgun bars, this just goes back to Manifest Destiny, since we Americans invented all these cultures, the idea of bar culture. A shotgun bar was, Wild West days, like the bucket of blood saloon, etc. Is the bartender kept the shotgun behind the bar. So, and the idea was at a shotgun bar, you can't see the bartender's shotgun. If it was a circle bar, you'd see that they have a gun, and that would change the conversation. A shotgun bar is just a straight line bar up against the wall. It's the most common kind. That's all in my field of vision. I barely have to do this to keep the guests completely in my line of vision. I can scan the drinks, scan the eyeballs, scan the room, look out the windows, all in one couple of passes like a lifeguard. And so that one's easiest. When you get into these other shapes, add complexity, you add cost, and you add service challenges, and also get into the front of the house and back of house. There's no one bad shape in the basic shapes, right? There's just an understanding that, like, I break down like, okay, here's all the shapes, right? Here's your island bar, your peninsula, your shotgun. Here are the variants like the horseshoe, and kind of explain why we use these terms and why they can help you no matter what kind of budget you have if you're building a place. Like before you get all excited to with a shape, someone has to come in and figure out how to get equipment back there and then how that's going to work in the room. And if you lock into that shape with the architect, the trap is you're going to go, if someone's going to point this out to you, you're going to go, oh man, but well, all right, let's change it. The architect's going to go, sure, change order, $6,000 to redraw that. And you're going to go, oh, never mind, we're not moving that. Because now you're worried that you wasted money. You have that sunken cost fallacy. So yeah, geometry is very, very rarely talked about.
Well, I think I'm with you. It's hugely important. And I think it's something that not enough people that buy bars or build bars know, but everyone that's worked behind one pretty much has figured out, just intrinsically, whether or not they realize how much they understand it. Now, there's something else you just hit on that I want to dive into a little bit, which is sunk cost fallacy. Because when we were talking the other day, I said, isn't there something you could do if you have a bad bar set up for a couple grand? And you're like, no, there's really not. You should just tear the whole thing down and rebuild it. And that's actually cheaper in the long run. And at first I'm like, okay, this is a little crazy. And then the more I thought about it, and I'm talking about days afterwards, I'm like, no, wait, Tobin said something really freaking smart there. That if you have a bad design, sometimes the best option is to just get rid of it, eat the cost, rebuild it, and not fall into that sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy is the number one thing holding operators back. And I get it. I remember the days, the bootstrapping and the, second mortgage to keep the place open. And we're going to meet payroll this week and we don't need vodka this month. And, we got to reach 2 more weeks to order straws. I've been there and I've managed a number of places and I get it. I feel your pain, but why are you experiencing that pain? Nothing cures a bar or a restaurant's financial problems like volume. Volume solves everything. There's nobody that is just raking in cash, bringing it, that's busy and has all these problems. I got to cut pennies here and cut pennies here. When you start doing that math, I got to cut. It's usually a race to the bottom. And the next thing that comes in are all the crazy little promotions. And then you become one, you're just another and you end up losing out. So one of the things that you should think about is just because you can't see the leakage and the shrinkage and the uncaptured revenue, it doesn't mean it's not real. You're just not seeing it in your face. So you're not focusing on it. But if there was just a simple scan through your camera and it could actually calculate and capture that, and that's what we do manually. If you could just see that walking out and you saw a number every night, you missed $32,000 tonight. You lost. It was in the room, ready to buy, but you lost it. And you did that math, you'd be stunned and go, what the hell am I doing? My assembly line is terrible. And that's the thing. We are the only industry that has an assembly line, kitchen and bar, as the most critical areas of revenue production that we have in our whole business that doesn't do any type of strategic planning and value engineering assessment truly of the throughput, the output. And my scale clients all do this. Like I'll tell you right now, all the big boys, they know their throughput numbers, they know all that, and they optimize. But all independents, we don't have time. We're doing 10,000, we're cleaning sinks and put orders in, and people are calling out. But we lose sight of the fact that it's that slow drip, the invisible slow drip that you don't think adds up, those 7 seconds per drink, those hundreds here, thousands there. And at the end of the year, you lost enough money. You could have shut your bar down for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or 4 days, pulled all that janky together, misaligned stuff that all your bartenders hate. It's this station's different, that one's smaller, and I got to think when I bartend and I'm running up and down. You could have fixed all it, and you would have actually recaptured revenue before that end of that festival. Instead of going, look, I got bigger problems and I don't want to spend the money. Mm-hmm. You are spending the money and you're not getting anything. There's no investment. You're wasting the money. This isn't a sales pitch because I don't, if nobody calls me from this podcast, like that's not why I'm on here. It's to help. I'm telling you, when I was managing and running bars and a partner in bars, this is what we realized. Like, this is where the gold is. Where are we losing uncaptured revenue? Because it's so much easier to capture uncaptured revenue that's in the building than it is to bring it in, especially now. Mm-hmm. And what's the next acquisition cost of the customer these days, I guess, versus just getting them to order a second drink or staying longer, coming back once so that you don't have to remarket to them and start that all over with the bartender and their strangers. And that whole cycle is so much wasted time and effort.
That is such a powerful position, really. I mean, and I just love it because it is so true. And I know when I owned a bar, I did the same shit, right? I'd be like, oh, well, I know I need to redo my bar. I'm going to do it next year. I don't want to spend the money this year. And a matter of fact, in one bar, I knew I needed to redo it for years, never did it. I was out of the business before I even got to redoing the bar. And now I look back and I'm like, holy shit, man, you were doing a lot of volume. And then you talk about things like if your bartenders are putting bottles on the bar, and I'm like, yeah, we were doing that. And I knew we should have redone it. And I never wanted to do it. I guess that's just to say I'm just as guilty as everybody else. But it's something that I don't think, unless somebody pointed it out, I would have ever thought about or seen even years after I made those mistakes.
No, and most don't. It's just not an industry. Think what other businesses, if you're serious about it and you're running it, you have to wake up at 5, 6 in the morning, get your workout in, get ready, whatever. Then you've got to do until hopefully you're not doing lunch or breakfast. God bless those that do multi-day part. Let's say you're just opening up at 3, 4, 5, 6 in the afternoon. So you put a full day in plus. And then your workday starts and you run a bar or a restaurant until hopefully only 11, 12, 1 in the morning, maybe a little, but there until 4 or 5. It's almost all day, all night, 6 days a week for years until you get enough capital and cash flow and stability to be able to bring in enough managers so you have some work-life balance. And that's the time when you're losing all that money the most. The good news is it's not that hard. And here's how you do it in 3 steps. Super easy. Number 1, identify your shoulder season, your slow season, even if it's a week. Almost every operation on planet Earth has 1 week when they know it's going to be dead because of something in the market, the weather, whatever it is. Find that seasonality, identify it, put it on your calendar now. And every year, this is when we do the BPI, the business process improvement. This is when we do a big initiative. It can be big in terms of the mental and the task hours to overhaul something, or it can be big in terms of CapEx. Well, I don't have CapEx. I own a one restaurant. You do. You need to figure out how to find it. You need to figure out how to squirrel it away or what you can do to your debt consolidation, et cetera, in order to leverage it and know that planning ROI. Don't hire anyone to help you redesign a bar or restaurant that can't speak this language, that just wants to sell you equipment or sell you a look. It's like, that's not what's going to bring in money, right? Yeah, pretty room is great, but there's a lot of pretty rooms out there. So find people that speak the financial operational language and make sure that you go over and they have due diligence to say, these are the projected leakages. This is the projected throughput changes, the revenue. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. Spend the year planning it and designing it. And don't call someone 5 or 8 weeks before you want to do it and go, yeah, I got 5 weeks. Well, you're not going to get it done. Times are at least 6 weeks per catalog. And that's just for the manufacturer to make it. You need 3 to 8 months, even a decent small place, to do it right and not stress everyone out. Plan it all. And if you do it properly, most of the time for a single outlet, so one physical bar, teams can get in there. If it's all coordinated properly, you can get in there and you can go ahead and you can flip that place in about 72 hours. Maybe it's a week. But if you planned it right, and give your staff their vacation time and whatever else, it all works out. So that's number one, is that week each year. Find it and identify it. Number two is to listen to your staff. I've been bartending, designing bars for 22 years. I don't take a job if I can't talk to the bartenders to redesign the bar. They have all the answers. They know what doesn't work. They know what sucks. They know what they don't want you to change. No one else knows that. So that's number two, is make sure you're talking to the end user who actually knows what the pain points and the constraints, the bottlenecks, where they all are, and the stuff you couldn't possibly know unless you've lived and breathed in this space. Oh, you can't do that because, see, the way we get our kegs in through there and then they come that way and that'll never work. Oh, I didn't know that. I'm glad you told me. And then number three is find any way that you can't forget about to just start counting the losses, right? Mm-hmm. Count step, count time, just find something. And like once you see bartenders walking to get a beer or anything, a glass, if your bartenders are taking a step to pick up a glass to make a drink, that was 0.7 seconds times 2. That's a second and a half. Depending on your business, that could be $60,000 a year that you wasted, that you're not capturing. It could be $500,000. It's there. I promise you. I see it every single day. Find it. Start paying attention, because if you don't track it, it's not real and you don't care about it. As soon as you start tracking it, just like when you watch your weight, you're like, oh, I can eat another cupcake. And then you're like, oh, shit, I got to jump on that scale tomorrow and check my macros. This has got way too much saturated fat. This screws up my whole week. I can't do that. That shit's invisible, but you found a way to track it. And once you tracked it, then you could attack it. So track it, attack it, fix it. 3 steps. Done.
That is an awesome framework there, and I really like it. But we are running short on time. So, Tobin, I'm sure people are going, okay, I want to check out this book. I want to learn more about Tobin. Where can they go to get the book, learn more about you, and really dive into everything you have out there?
Barmagic.com, baby. Bar Magic. 29 years, 30 years next year. Barmagic.com, the book's there, I'm there, it's all there, case studies, all that stuff. But you can find it on Tobin Ellis Design on Instagram. And you can just go to Amazon. If you type in bar design essentials will pop up. Or just type in bar design essentials Tobin Ellis. There's an ebook on Apple only, Apple Books, and then the hardcover is on Amazon. And the subtitle is really important. And I want everyone to know the book isn't for one group. It's not for bartenders or architects or whatever. It's everyone. The subtitle is How to Design Bars That Work for Everyone. And that's the GC, the plumber, the bartender, the barback, the asset manager, everyone. It's explaining, hopefully in super plain English with dimensions, diagrams, photos, plans, everything you want. 56, they're not even chapters, topics. And you can just go, I want to know about custom scuppers. Oh man, how do I get more valuation? How do I reverse engineer pro forma to figure out how I make more money? It's all in there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. That's how you get something done to fix your bar under $2,000. When people ask me that, I only got $800. What do I do? Buy a book. And then you got 700 plus bucks left to figure out if you could do something with it. Buy your wife or your husband and something nice today.
Well, with that, we will put all of those links down in the show notes. So if you're listening, scroll down, click on them. Tobin is an awesome guy. And I have to say, one of the more fun people I've had a conversation with in a while. So Tobin, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the stories. And just thank you for sharing the design features that probably no one knew they should be looking for, but are really impactful to the business.
Absolutely. I appreciate having me out, Chris. And I should mention, if you don't want to go through all the headache and hassle of trying to figure out what equipment to get, I did design a line for the Perlit Corporation. They're one of the largest underbar manufacturers. It's had my name on it for 10 years. It's called the Tobin Ellis Signature Series, or it was. It's probably, it's got designed by Tobin Ellis on it, even as that changes or evolves. And that is everything that's up here into a piece of steel. Your dealer, designer, architect can find right now and help get some of those efficiencies built back in. So you got a lot of ways to help yourself without spending huge amounts on consultants, designers, etc. if you're at that position where you can't overfloat it. So go fight, win. And man, I hope we get to talk again soon about anything. I'd love to. Appreciate it.
That about wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed today's insights, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you are ready to take your bar to the next level, schedule a strategy session with me by clicking the link in the show notes below. Until next time, have a great day, and we will talk again later.